back. We're talking about nutrition labels, and we're talking about buzzwords that you'll find on nutrition labels. I've already talked about partially hydrogenated oils, high fructose corn syrup, fortified, enriched, bleached, and there's a plethora of other ones you just need to be starting to look out for. Uh, Familiarize yourself with nutrition labels, with those ingredient lists. If there is a ton of things listed in the ingredients list, then most likely it's not the most nutritious. The, the fewer words that are listed in that ingredients list, probably the more nutritious that item is for you. You want whole foods. You want the natural foods. Um, you don't want all the high processed foods. So we were just talking about artificial sweeteners and sugar and how our body knows how to handle those sugar levels. Again, sugar in moderation, it's not going to affect you that much. Your body knows how to handle it. It's called insulin. It produces it and it knows how to deal with it. Artificial sweeteners, however, kind of confuse the body. It's a chemical that man has come up with to sweeten our foods. And so, kind of a rule of thumb, we take this I take this from Zanya, and she has a website, Zanya.com. She is a registered dietitian, and I'm going to steal her slogan that says, dial down your sweet tooth. We don't need to sweeten our food so much. If you were to give yourself a few weeks of taking in less sweet foods, your body can adjust, and your palate of your tongue will adjust. Um, Kind of a case in point would be the honey roasted peanuts or honey roasted almonds. Uh, I still like to eat honey roasted almonds. They do still taste good to me. However, if you were to eat just the plain whole almonds, look on the ingredients list, it says almonds. That's all that's in there. Doesn't have a bunch of salt, doesn't have the sugar, doesn't have anything else in it. If you were to eat those at first, they would taste really bland to you. However, after a few weeks of fueling your body with whole natural almonds, and you were to go back to a sugary almond or let's say like a smoked almond, real salty almond, it just doesn't taste the same. Another example would be coffee. I used to drink my coffee with my sugar in the morning, and I began to do less and less sugar in that coffee. And now I drink coffee black. And to me, coffee tastes so much better. Like the taste is so good, just a black, rich coffee. And now you add sugar to my coffee and I'll spit it out. It just does not taste good to me. So it's one of those things of getting our bodies accustomed to it. I'm not saying that tomorrow, when you wake up in the morning, you can no longer put sugar in your coffee. That's not what we're getting at here. We are talking about lifestyle changes and just dialing down our sweet tooth over the next several weeks, and especially as you're fueling your body for boot camp. So it's just a good rule of thumb. Another couple of buzzwords, sugar-free, fat-free. Those two are buzzwords. If it says fat-free on the front of the box, most likely they've erased the sugar to account for it. If they've said sugar-free on the box, then they've probably adjusted the fat content. So just because it says sugar-free, oh, I can consume this. Not necessarily. Continue to look at those ingredients lists. Continue to look at those nutrition labels. That is what's going to give you the tools that you need to succeed, is learning those nutrition labels. All right, a couple other things. Page 3, we're talking about calories. Do you know how they figure out how many calories are in foods? Well, 1 gram of protein equals 4 calories, and 1 gram of carbs equals 4 calories. However, 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. So they weigh that food up, and that's how they determine how many calories are in food. So we can take that same mathematics and pretty much figure out how many of each of those items we need to be consuming. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. Last little thing I want to talk about, I told you we'd talk more about sodium in the previous segment. The American Heart Association recommends, their sodium recommendations is 2,300 milligrams a day per person. Now that's a lot of salt. I know bodybuilders and other maybe fitness enthusiasts, fitness professionals may tell you, 1,000 milligrams of salt a day is where you want to be. And that may be true. However, your body can consume and stay healthy at 2,300 milligrams. Here's the deal. Salt allows your body to retain water. It actually makes your body retain water. So if you're looking for that tight tone look, then you need to lower your sodium intake, probably 1,000 or less. However, again, we're talking about lifestyle, day in and day out, being healthy. 2,300 milligrams of salt a day is what's recommended. And then keep in mind also that sodium is added into a lot of foods. So what I am in the habit of doing now is just hiding the salt shaker, taking that salt shaker out, hiding it somewhere, or put it in the back, pulling it out ever so often. So just keep that in mind with sodium. All right, we're going to turn the page to page 4, talk about number 5 here, which is determining calories based on what the FDA recommends of carbohydrates, protein, and fat. So let's look at that real quick. They say that 55 to 65% of our diet needs to be carbs, 10 to 20% of our diet be protein, and 20 to 30% be fat. So what I've done is I've just manipulated this. What I'm looking at, the example that we're going to look at together, is based on a woman who needs 1,500 calories a day of nutritious foods and how she might break that up into carbohydrates, protein, and fat. We'll talk more about in just a moment why this is important. But basically you take your answer to number 4 and you multiply it by 0.55, which is 55%. Remember, you got to move that decimal. And the answer is 825 calories. Now, if we divide that by 4 calories, remember, 4 calories of carbohydrates is 1 gram. Then we divide that 825 calories by 4 calories, and it comes up with 206 grams of carbs a day. Take the same with protein. And I've kind of taken us to the high end of protein, 20%. Multiply the answer to number 4 on page 2 by 0.2. We come up with 300 calories divided by 4 calories, because there's 4 calories of protein in each gram. We come up with 75 grams of protein a day. And last but not least, and I've kind of taken us into the middle of what is recommended by the FDA of 25%. Multiply that by 0.25, and we come up with 375 calories. Divide that by 9, because remember, fat calories is a little bit more per gram. That's approximately 42 grams of fat per day for a woman that needs 1,500 calories. Now, here's the interesting thing. 10, 15, maybe 20 years ago, and I can remember growing up, that we thought, 2 to 3 grams of fat per serving is where we needed to be at. And so, in fact, you look back at our nutrition label, and the fat content of that was 5 grams of fat. So we might look at that and say, oh, that's just too much based on what I've heard. 2 to 3 grams is what I need to be at, so that's too high in fat. Well, based on this, 42 grams of fat per day for this particular woman, a 1,500 calorie diet, if you were to divide 42 by, let's say, 5 or 6 meals, she could have 7 to 9 calories of fat per serving, or per time she eats. And that is a healthy fat intake. And again, we want the healthy fats. There's a difference. 7 grams of healthy monounsaturated fat is different than 7 grams of saturated fat. So again, we're going to continue to look at those nutrition labels and learn what kind of foods we are fueling our body with. All right, that takes us to the end of talking about nutrition labels and caloric intake. The rest of our segment is really the nuts and bolts of what you need to truly succeed in your nutrition, how to eat for nutrition. It's the general guidelines that we're going to talk about. And it is really, we're going to talk about what you need to take away from all that we've discussed so far. So hang in there, we're almost done, and this is where it really gets fun.